The holding midfield, the number six. As a youth coach, sometimes I caught myself asking a 10-year-old to play as a six. Then wonder if I ever explain to them what that means. I expect them to command the field, connecting defense and attack, and breaking up opposition play. Do I have crazy expectations? Can I describe all of this to a young kid? What exactly makes a great holding midfielder? In this video, we break down the positioning, responsibilities, and tactical intelligence needed to master the role. As always, timestamps are in the description if you want to skip to a particular section. I often asked which position is the hardest to play, and I always say that is the six. Of course, technically and physically, it is not easy, but the brain to play as a sole holding midfielder is extremely rare that coaches often decide to play with two holding midfielders to not compensate for it. Breaking down the full tactical knowledge is going to take a lot of time, so we'll focus only on the attacking positioning in this video. We'll split the video into two general parts, building out from the back in our own half and attacking in the opponent half. The most important part when building out from the back is the understanding of your role as a facilitator. As we talked in the video about the third man, the role of the six is almost always going to be the support passer. To be successful in that role, you need to be in the right spot and the right time. However, you're dependent on the opponents and their positioning. Let's look at several examples to illustrate what I mean. Firstly, we'll look into cases when the opponents are defending zonally without pressure on the six. Then we will see how to solve for the problem when a player is man marking. Ideally, you would be in an area between opponents at a reasonable distance. If the opponents are playing statically in a zone, there's always this area that is empty. As the ball moves, that area also moves because the opponents reposition. If your teammates do get you the ball in this area, you don't have too much time. You will always have 3 or 4 players that can sense that together can press you successfully. So when I say that you need a special brain, what you need to do is before you receive the ball are two things: scan the field and escape with the first touch. You need to scan your surrounding for both opponents and teammates. This is not something that you do once, but constantly. At the beginning, it is unnatural to keep turning your head left and right to create a 360 degrees picture. After doing that for years of playing in the center of the field, it becomes normal to keep turning your head every half second. So it almost feels like a movie and not a picture. Then you need to decide of how your first touch would position you once you receive the ball. The most common mistake I see in young players is that they believe that their main goal is to get the ball. Then they would worry about what they're deciding to do with it. However, what they need to do actually is to be one step ahead and set themselves up with the first touch to escape their opponents. Set the ball for a pass or even do a first touch pass. Oftentimes, the role of a six is to provide option as a support for 1-2, as we talked in the video in the card. Let me digress here for a second. From time to time, we can see some technical magicians like Pirlo or Jorginho who can send a perfect through ball to the strikers or the wingers with a one touch on a half turn from their own half. That is not normal. I don't care how much you practice it, and they definitely did a lot. It cannot be your core play all the time. And even if you need an extra touch, that's fine. If you're aware of that opportunity, make sure that the first touch you take is to set yourself up from away from the opponents, and then the next touch can be the attempt for that long pass. Now let's talk about the issue when there's an opponent man marking. This might be because the entire team is man marking, or because you found yourself in an area where an opponent is pressing, or maybe even because they identify you as a dangerous player that need to be closed all the time. Now your role will change a little bit. Sometimes you will be the one progressing the ball by passing or dribbling, but other times you just need to create space. Easier said than done. If you're looking to get the ball, you need to get into the same area as before. But if you just stay there, then your marker will become the man of the match that day. So ideally, you will stay in a place where you can get the ball directly. But you will leave that area free for a pass for you to move into. That means that both the direction and the weight of the pass must be correct. Then your first touch must be into space again, away from the opponent marking you. But what if you moved into the area too early or too late? If you don't get the ball, move away. The reason why that area is so important is because there's a lane of pass that goes through that area. So if you're too late to move into that area, the passer might try a long pass. If you're too early, you need to leave that area. Or to be more direct, just get out of there to allow for that long pass to occur again. Now, if there's a long ball, then you move to offer the support. Sometimes that spot where you offer the support is again that free area. More often than not, your marker would have left you to drop deeper into shape. As we talked into another video in this card here, breaking lines can drive defenders crazy, and that is particularly effective when you skip lines. Nobody can press for the full 90 minutes, and this is the way to make them give up earlier in the game. That positioning after the long ball might not always work. However, what will almost always work is finding the blind spot of your marker. Again, you start to position yourself in a place where you cannot possibly receive the ball. But you and your marker run the same way, but the moment your marker turns their head away, you change your direction and or pace. Sometimes I even just stop running the moment my marker turns their head, and that's enough. We covered a lot about playing in our own half. Now it's time to move to the opponent's half. When attacking against a low block or a mid block, the modern tacticians have defined 2-3-5 or 3-2-5 as desired formations. If the opponent leaves one striker, then 2-3-5 might be sufficient to provide security. If the opponent is playing with two strikers or setting something like a 4-4-2 in low block, we should think of 3-5 as our default setup. We'll get into the details of both of them. The 2-3-5 formation comes easy when starting with the 4-3-3 formation. Both fullbacks moved higher in line with the six, and the holding mids needs to be central pivot here. The role of the holding mid here is clear. Occupy the center, help recycle the ball, and break opponent threats when needed. The movement to position yourself where you can receive the ball is constant. You constantly look for that empty pocket and for a line to get the pass back. Those areas that we talked about earlier will always exist in this case. You as a six will always stay behind the ball. So likely there's always going to be a space nearby where the opponents are outnumbered or non-existent. Your job is to always be in that area where you can receive the ball right away or after one pass. In this 2-3-5 formation, you will never be the player that carries the ball forward a lot. You will not make runs into the penalty box. You should worry less about finding the perfect pass, but should look to distribute sideways when possible. It can be an extremely boring job at times, especially if there are not that many opportunities for through balls behind the defending line. However, it has to be done flawlessly and consistently. Moving on to the more interesting 3-5 formation. There are few ways to get into the 3-5, and those ways can determine your role as a six. One role is where you needed to drop back into the back three. In these situations, your role is to be a central defender, good on the ball, but mostly just distributing the ball and be in that last line of defense. From time to time, you might end up attempting a longer pass beyond the last defensive line. The way to get into the 3-5 with holding mid as a central defender is that your wingbacks pushed very high and they're likely part of the front five, while the central midfielders are your center two. Obviously, it is possible that both wingbacks actually invert or some mix and match combination, but it is much less common as a standard flow and might be just the circumstance at the moment. Much more common case is that the holding midfielder is one of the two players in the middle. In a 4-2-3-1 formation, that is a common scenario. One of the wingbacks go forward when the ball is on their side, while the other three defenders stretch the last defensive line. This is the most common scenario in the youth systems, where teams are coached to understand the way of pushing on one side and regrouping the defense with three players. If playing in a 4-3-3 formation, getting to a 3-2-5 is a bit more different. One of the defenders usually invert to take the second spot in the center of the field. It can be one of the fullbacks, which is more common. Less often is the central defender that pushes higher. With the fullback inverting, it creates a misbalance in the opponent formation where the winger doesn't know if they need to come centrally or drop deep, which can be very confusing. The role of the holding midfielder here can vary. While the two players in the center are here to provide the support to maintain possession, recycle the ball, and switch the ball from one side to the other, they can do other things too. They might find opportunities to take a shot, make a run on a cross, or even do an underlapping run. The first rule is that if one of them does this run, then the other player must stay back and act as a single pivot. The second rule is that if you can run forward, you must be able to sprint back and cover. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video and found some of the other videos on the channel useful. If you're interested in guides for other position, check out the video about the striker position that has a ton of useful tips. See you in the next one.